Welcome back to the second part of our interview with Thomas DeCarlo of DeCarlo Animation as we talk about his animated feature film, The Encounter. Because it's so pioneering, I feel inadequate, to ask the right questions about what makes this so pioneering. I feel like you've given us some information about that. I think that the important part is what you talked about, like this, the studio budgets for the big blockbuster ones compared to what you're doing, the format, the grounding of those locations and everything, and that's part of it. What about like, okay, animated characters? Forgive me if I'm completely using the wrong terminology. Are created on your computer in
Mhm.
some sort of animation software or something.
Yep.
But, you know, do they have real people voicing them? And if so, how does that work for a full length animated feature like what you're working on? That because that would have to require some recording time, some
Mhm.
commitment, some, are is the script recorded, like the voiceover is recorded separately or in conjunction with as you're creating the visuals? Does any of that make
Yeah.
sense? Do you kind of
We're
know what it's kind of
yeah.
like, how do you pull all this together, I guess is my basic question, and I'm not sure how to ask it. So,
Sure. Yeah. I mean, a lot of animations they'll do all of the story, they'll do all of the art, and then they'll bring the actors in. And the
okay.
actors will then voice right before, the final animation. We're doing more of a TV style, so a lot of TV animation will bring in the artist first.
Okay.
They'll the and so their performances will then drive all of the animation.
Interesting. That's exactly
So
that's what I was trying to ask. Yes.
yeah, so
So
I
talk
I've
about that a little bit. Yeah.
we're actually doing a kind of a roundtable rehearsal.
Okay.
So it was inspired by the pandemic. I was like, if all these actors are stuck at home,
Sure.
let's try and get people together and let them Zoom and perform with one another. So we are doing this rehearsal where just like the five or six core characters can all get together and play off of one another.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exciting to me. I feel like that was appealing to people. We cast a lot of talent who have a lot of theatrical experience,
Mm-hmm.
so they're used to that sort of
Yeah.
environment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's much more appealing when you have a role in creating the character instead of just showing up when everything is done and you're just adding the voice
Right.
to it.
Right.
So, and what's cool about that is that because I'm the writer, director, animator, I I can sit at that rehearsal and I can make those decisions on the spot. I'm like,
Yeah.
I like that. We're going with that. I can write new dialogue around that. I know how to animate that. And so it is kind of unique because of that scale, because I can sit there and work directly with the actors and make adjustments. And my idea is, people really like the script and drew in really awesome talent. And uh, but I still hesitate about my writing. I'm like, this could be better. Like something about this inevitably could be better. And so part of that is let's just take these really experienced actors and really see how they explore those personalities, how they mesh when they actually sit down and bounce those lines off of one another, and then make some tweaks
Yeah.
and adjust things. We're not going to overhaul the film,
Right.
but
Right.
we'll
But
tease
I,
out
yeah,
that
I can kind of
chemistry.
understand what you're talking about. This may not be a very good parallel, but it's one that sprung to mind. Is I write prose and poetry, and the difference to me between writing something and hearing it in my head, and then as opposed to actually reading it out loud. um, I have learned that it's a good idea to read things out loud that I've written, even if I'm just reading it to myself, because the tweaks will come. It's just, there's a different experience to something that's heard rather than internalized when you just read it to yourself. And I feel like kind of what you're talking about with this experience is that you, as the overall creator of these characters, their words, and what is going to be visually seen while they're speaking, is enhanced by that experience of having these actors, flesh out these roles around
Yeah.
a table in Zoom, if you will. It's kind of like our round table. We used to record. That table behind me is actually my dining room table, and it's a 6 foot, 2 inch butcher block. And we used to record at the round table. That's why we call our podcast At the Round Table. And when the pandemic happened, it was like, I'm gonna have to use Zoom. I better take a
Yeah.
picture of the table. So
Yeah.
I certainly can understand that idea of getting together with people in Zoom and trying to create something. I think that what you've tackled in this full length film is probably a lot more complex in terms of themes and emotions and the complexity of the story and the characters. And that's got to be helped by that interaction between you and the actors as you're working in these kind of draft sessions for, what you call rehearsals. That's what they're called, rehearsals.
Yeah.
Do you think that makes a big difference in how they see what you've envisioned in your script and how to play those parts in those moments of intense complexity and everything?
Yeah. I mean, I certainly set out to write something different than your typical animated film.
Hmm.
So you can see a little bit of it in the short film that, it's not written for kids, it's written
Right.
for adults. And obviously the story is limited there, but with
Hmm.
the bigger film, the feature film, it's very apparent that it's not written for kids.
Hmm.
There's no child characters. It's not a coming of age story. That's like 90% of all
Yeah. Yeah.
animated family friendly
It sounds
content.
very refreshing, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to make something that I found interesting,
Hmm.
that I could sit down with my kids and watch. And there's shockingly little of that. Stuff is
Yeah.
either written for kids that, the adults just, sometimes the stuff at the very, top tier has content that's appealing to adults as well.
Sure.
But yeah, so I really wrote stuff for adults. They're adult problems. It's about workplace conflicts. It's about this, engineer who's a rookie and has this experience and no one believes him.
Hmm.
And his superiors are just like, you're the new guy, like you're the young guy, you don't know what you're talking about.
Hmm.
And so you get into some of those, generational conflicts. There's of course the overarching theme of xenophobia, since you're
Hmm.
talking about aliens
Sure.
and
That
um, the
otherness. Yeah.
the otherness. Yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
otherness is the
Very
heart of this
important
story.
concept right now in our world today. I would just say that. So
Yes.
thank you for including that in your animated full-length feature film.
Yeah, and the heroine, the co-star who's voiced by Laura Gomez, she is in Orange is the New
Yeah.
Black, and so she's brings kind of a Hispanic perspective to
Hmm.
it, and um, so yeah, it's actually a bilingual film, so there's a lot of Spanish in the film, but that just compounds the otherness. So you've got
Hmm.
the main character who is a the engineer, the young guy, and the conflict. So it even branches into a little bit of that anti-intellectualism. Uh, but as I say that, I know that people jump on a lot of films that get in your face, but you know it's all subtle. It's all
Hmm.
about the structuring of it. That you just have a guy who people don't believe. Well,
Hmm.
he's the young guy. You have
Hmm.
an agent who is Latina,
Hmm.
and the other agents don't like her. She's a maverick.
Right.
And you just see those hints without putting anything in
Hmm.
anybody's face. You just see those hints of that underlying, those conflicts and those
Yeah.
dynamics.
What I love about what you're saying, and forgive me if this sounds like I'm dissing our state of Indiana, but I love that you've put that kind of subtlety. It's not in your face. It's like the real world. I think things like that can be in the workplace, especially expressed very subtly, but they're there.
Mhm.
And Indiana is kind of masterful at that. I think it's one of those states where, it's this welcoming Hoosier hospitality state, but that's the surface. And then just under that is like this brick wall that it's very hard to break through if you're one of the otherness
Mhm.
people, And I hope that I'm not, sounding insulting to Indiana or anything like that, but it is something that I've seen over and over again as an artist, as a writer, as someone who is, running a nonprofit that tries to promote and educate stuff for promote arts and artists of all kinds. And it just keeps, I keep seeing it play out in the lives of the artists that we talk to, that there's this kind of very strange, invisible, but very solid brick wall there sometimes. And I think, in the last several years, the whole country and the whole world has sort of seen the United States struggle with that kind of overarching concept of the people who are, shall I say, unwilling to embrace the otherness in people who don't look exactly like them or believe religiously exactly like them or something like that. And so I think it's really great that you intentionally are putting that into your characters' lives in a way that mirrors that subtle nature of those kinds of experiences in real life. I think that's very clever and very intriguing to me. I can't wait to see this movie.
Thank you.
I'm very
Well,
excited about it.
yeah, I mean that as a creative, I've lived a life of otherness. So
Exactly. I mean,
um
that's something that I think people who don't quote do art, do the arts, don't really understand. That
yeah,
artists are all a little bit, different.
yeah, and so I've always been in, lumped into various other categories, and of course as a writer, like that's what you do.
Right.
You
Hmm.
imagine other types of experiences than your own,
Hmm.
and discover something that's interesting about those to you. And so yeah, that it just comes, it's hand in hand,
Yeah, it is. And the wonderful thing about that is that whether you intend it or not, whether it's intentional or not, when it's well done and when it's subtle, those are the stories, whether they're books, films, whatever the format, those are the stories that become classics. Those are the things that people remember. Those are the things that change the world. And I feel like you're working in a genre that you're embracing new technology, you're embracing, format that is original and relatively new to what you're trying to do, and to push those boundaries is so exciting. Thank you so much for being here. I'm just so excited to hear
Oh, good.
hear about all of this. And I want to make sure that I mentioned to everybody that DeCarloAnimation.com, is that
Mhm.
correct? Is the website. And your website, thomasdecarlo.com, also has an awful lot of good information on it. So definitely check those out, those websites out. Is there anything else you want to tell the people
Yeah, well, of course,
about your project?
the third website is
Oh yeah, the
theencountermovie.com.
encounter movie. I
So
had that
that,
written down and I didn't
yeah,
say it. I apologize. I
you'll
will,
you'll get to it from either way.
yeah, the
But
encountermovie.com. Yes,
yeah,
don't forget that. And that's the website for the short, or is that
it's for the feature,
for the
but
feature? Okay.
the short is on there as well,
Okay.
so you can go and see
Good. See what
where it
what
came
the
from.
basis is, the foundation. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's so exciting. Okay, well, I just thank you so much for coming on the roundtable today and talking to me about this. I wish you just the greatest success, and I hope the pandemic doesn't get too much in the way of this project because it just sounds fascinating.
thank you very much.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
This has been At the Roundtable with Alice
And Sarah E.
of Community Education Arts.
Our nonprofit organization is based in Noblesville, Indiana. You can find us online at CEArts.org. We'd like to thank James Weston for writing our intro music and for his technical savvy.
Join us next time
At the Roundtable.